In this session, I am going to explain view binding in Android Kotlin. And this is the official documentation from Google. The view binding is a feature which makes it easier to write code that interacts with the views. And once this feature is enabled, it generates a binding class for every XML layout file which is available in our module. This is the setup we have to do it. If you are using Kotlin, you have to say that build features view binding equal to true. In Groovy means without equal, you have to say view binding true. So I'm going to follow with Kotlin. Let us see how it can be done in Android Studio. I'm just opening the Android Studio. Create a new project. This MD activity for Android Compose, but I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use MD views activity. So ensure that you select MD views activity and give some name for the application. Let us say my app. Language is Kotlin. Here the build configuration language. I'm going with the recommended, that is Kotlin DSL. Click finish. The project is created. Now go to the Gradle scripts and here you can see build.gradle.kts module app. So app is our current module. Open this file and here you can see there is a block labeled with Android. So somewhere within this block we have to type build features view binding equal to true. If there is any modification in Gradle file, we have to sync our project. Here you can see sync now. Here you can see the status. Gradle is configuring the project. It is done. Now go to the main activity. We are going to initialize a variable with late init. It means immediately we are not going to initialize it. The variable name is binding colon, and for our layout file, that is activity main.xml, for this a binding class will be automatically created when we enable the build feature view binding equal to true. So and its name will be activity main binding. This is automatically created and its syntax follow like this. Our layout name is activity main. So from this layout activity main, then it appends the, will not be setting the content view like this now. So first we have to get the instance of activity main binding. Take the binding, then use this activity main binding dot inflate and pass the argument layout inflator. It calls get layout inflator method. So this is how to get the instance of activity main binding. Once we get the instance of activity main binding, now we can call set content view binding dot root. So here the binding dot root means go to our activity main.xml. You can look at the code and this is the root tag constraint layout. So we are setting that parent tag Here in this case it is constraint layout. Put some ID here. Let us say my text view. How we can use this ID through the binding? I'm going to use where my text, let us say that it is of type text view equal to binding dot my text view, where my text view is the ID which we assigned for the text view. So if we have a button below to the text view, yes, we can do the same thing. So I'm going to the design phase. Let us add a button, drag and drop it, and set the constraints left, right, and bottom. So here below to hello world. And for this button, here there is a default value for the ID. Let it be. Let us see how it can be taken. Where my button type equal to binding dot button. Now I'm going to create one more activity. So here go to our project explorer, right click, new activity. You can go with MD views activity. I'm going to name it as login. Here you can see activity login. Then its binding class will be activity login binding. Click finish. Let us go for late initialization. Let us say that this is binding for login colon, and here the class name is activity login binding. Now get the instance of activity login binding, activity login binding dot inflate, pass layout inflator as input, and here insert content view binding for login dot root. And here I am not going to connect these two activities, just I want to show that how this binding class name is created. Now let me run the app. Here it shows update this project to use a new compile SDK at least 34. It can be fixed. Go to our build.gradle, change this to 34, sync now, build successful. Now it is running. Okay, everything is smoothly going. And here this is your main activity. Now I'm going to show where this activity main binding class is created. If you keep the mouse over here, it shows that it is in com.write myapp.data binding. But we didn't create any package like that. It is automatically created by the system. So if you want to see this package, change from Android to project. Here in our app module, we can see a folder called build. Go to the generator, And here you can see a folder called a data binding base class source out. Here it goes. For the activity main XML, this is that auto generated class. For the login activity underscore login.xml, this is the automatically created class. You can see that activity login binding.java, activity main binding.java. So don't edit this class.